The Heat reportedly made an offer to keep Caleb Martin on the roster, but could he be joining an Eastern Conference rival instead? Is Miami working on a deal to add a former All-Star? And we'll break down the latest news and rumors and look at the team's Summer League roster, all that and more in today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your everyday podcast on the Miami Heat. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or your favorite podcast app, thanks so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day, Monday to Friday. Recording this on a Friday. Hope everybody had a great 4th of July on Thursday. And thanks for tuning in with us late on a Friday. I'm Wes Goldberg, editor at allyoucanheat.com, here with David Ramil, both of us credentialed Heat media members. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. A lot to get to today. Before we get to Lauri Markkanen, some updates on the players that the Heat are dealing with right now. We're just going to bang through some of the news bulletins here and then do a deep dive into all these things. So, Caleb Martin. The Heat offered Caleb Martin a contract extension before he opted out of his $7.1 million deal this summer, but Caleb declined it because he thought he could get a bigger deal in free agency. Now, the Heat and Caleb are still in touch, but the 76ers have also registered some interest in Caleb, but evidently that market that he thought was going to be there hasn't been there yet. There's still a lot of time left. Haywood Highsmith, still a free agent. Might have to wait and see what happens with Caleb before he makes his own decision, unless there's a team that comes calling with a big enough offer. But Haywood's preference, as we know, he told the media he would love to stay with the Heat if he could. He's currently in Miami. I don't know if that means anything, but he's here. He hasn't left, so there's that. DeMar DeRozan, the Heat have been interested. They were told that DeMar DeRozan is seeking a larger deal than what they can offer with their current cap situation. But Woj reported on Friday that the Kings are working with the Bulls on a sign-and-trade deal for DeRozan, and that sounds like it could be something that gets done over the weekend. So the Heat obviously wanted DeMar DeRozan. They have the $5.2 million smaller exception available to sign him with, or obviously the veteran minimum. DeMar DeRozan has put it out there that he wants something more than even the full mid-level exception, which is about $13 million. So the Heat called up DeRozan's agent, Aaron Goodwin, their old friend, and we're basically told that DeRozan would love to play for the Heat, but you don't have enough money. So the Heat probably were trying to figure out maybe, I don't know. I would assume maybe they looked into the sign and trade route because of the complications on that. Maybe DeMar DeRozan isn't the cleanest fit. I don't know, but it looks like DeRozan, the Kings, that's where this thing is headed. But before we dive into all that stuff into more detail, I want to get to this report from ESPN's Zach Lowe, who wrote that the Heat have expressed interest in one Lauri Markkanen. So here's the quote. He says, Markkanen indeed stands as perhaps the league's most intriguing trade chip with Mikal Bridges now in New York. A pile of teams have shown interest in him, including the San Antonio Spurs, Sacramento Kings, Miami Heat, and Golden State Warriors. History suggests Danny Ainge, Utah's CEO, will move Markkanen once someone meets his price. That could be tomorrow or months from now if the Jazz raise Markkanen's salary and then sign him to a contract extension once they are allowed to do so in early August. So, David, we talked about Lauri Markkanen earlier in the week. I said earlier in the week that I got the impression that the Heat made a call about Markkanen, but have been made aware that they can't really get into serious negotiations because they just don't have the stuff. They don't have the assets to get a deal done. But what do you make of the Heat's interest in Markkanen?
Not much. It's nice to entertain. I wish it was more encouraging. This doesn't feel even anywhere near as close to Miami's interest in Donovan Mitchell or the possibility of trying to acquire Donovan Mitchell. Certainly nowhere near what we experienced last season or last offseason with Damian Lillard. This is just, you know what? Oh, wait, are you trading him? Yeah. How much do you want for him? Oh, that much? All right. Well, thanks for taking my call. I'll talk to you some other time when the offer is much more realistic. So, Miami just, I don't know what Miami could offer. They've got one pick, basically. They've also got all their draft picks. Yeah. Jaime Jaquez, Nikola Jovic, Tyler Hero.
Yeah.
You want to give up all of that for Lauri Markkanen? Miami certainly doesn't, and that's probably what it would take in order to even sway Danny Ainge. So Miami can't realistically get a done deal for Lauri Markkanen. He's a great fit. He's a great young player. Guy could stretch the floor. Love to see him in a Miami Heat uniform. Just not realistic to even consider it at this point in time.
7-footer who shoots 40% from three-point range and can shoot on the move. Could put the ball on the ground a little bit, play make a little bit, even though that's not really the the best part of his game. Not an awesome defender, but he's got great size, and that matters. That at least is helpful. Like we even saw with Nikola Jovic last year, where defensively he's still very young, but his size just adds something. So when you talk about a guy that, if you're building around Bam Adebayo, Lauri Markkanen is sort of the ideal player that you would put next to Bam, size and shooting, and at the same in the same kind of timeline. But you're right. Unless Danny Ainge loves Tyler Hero and Nikola Jovic to the point where, you know what, I don't even want the draft picks. I need Jovic. You know what I mean? Unless Danny Ainge is just absolutely enthralled with these guys, there's no way this trade is getting done. Zach Lowe mentioned Mikal Bridges. He went to the Knicks for 5 first-round picks. And if we know anything about Danny Ainge, he's going to leverage and leverage and leverage until he gets every single draft pick he could possibly get. The Utah Jazz are tearing this thing down. You trade Lauri Markkanen, there's no reason to have good players on the roster. You're tearing it down. You're going full tank, right? You want as many picks in a loaded 2025 draft class as possible because Danny Ainge recognizes that he needs a star. And as good as Lauri Markkanen is, he's not the number one player on a championship team. And that's what Ainge is trying to do. And so, and you combine that with the fact that Lauri Markkanen isn't up for an extension, and you're like, all right, if we're going to trade him now, right? Unless we want to extend him and maybe try to get a star another way. So, yeah, I just don't see the Heat getting involved in here. To me, the more interesting thing is that they're making the calls, right? Zach Lowe went on TV on Thursday or Friday or whatever day, and he was pretty critical of the Milwaukee Bucks and the Miami Heat. And on the Heat, he said, wake up, the offseason is here. They haven't done much. They don't have any tools. It's kind of just sad to watch them stand in place. And I think that's obviously a sentiment shared by a lot of Heat fans. It's just really, we're going to run this thing back 2 years in a row. And we're after being a play-in team 2 years in a row, like I get it. Like we talked about this earlier in the week. Like I understand the frustrations. But the idea that Pat Riley isn't doing anything, that he's asleep at the wheel or something, that Andy Ellsberg and Adam Simon aren't out there making those calls, that's wrong. They're making the calls. They were just not prepared to make any serious offers because they don't have the assets. But they're checking in, and I do think, based on the way they've been acting this offseason so far and leaving open the $7 million below the second apron, right? Not actually moving any of these pieces in a salary dump or something like that just yet, even if that were a possibility, which we don't know. I feel like they're up to something, and I don't know that that means that they're going to do something, right? But I do get the sense that they're trying to do something. This is not a team that's just going to chill for 3 months and wait for the season. I think the Heat recognize that even maybe a lateral move could be needed, but even a lateral move, quote unquote, isn't as easy as people think, right? You still need the other team to tango, right? You need another team out there willing to take on a Tyler Hero contract or a Terry Rozier or Duncan Robinson, whatever it is that they're trying to move. So, but I do get the sense that the Heat are trying to do something here.
Do you bake?
Like bake? No, you know that.
Yeah. Okay. I knew that, but that's like saying the Heat, like you've got a party outside. Imagine the party is Heat fandom, and they're all expecting and demanding a birthday cake, and you're like, "I'd love to get you a birthday cake," and everybody's like, "All right, good. You've been promising us a birthday cake for a while now. Not just last year. You missed our birthday last year. Imagine that is Dame Lillard. This year, we're totally getting a birthday cake." You're like, "Yeah, for sure." And then you go inside, you look inside your pantry, your kitchen, whatever, and you've got like a saltine cracker, which is Tyler Hero's contract. You've got maybe like a half a cup of baking powder or soda or something like that. And then you've got like very limited, you've got maybe a cinnamon stick somewhere, maybe an egg, one egg. That's Bam Adebayo. How the hell are you expecting to make a birthday cake out of that? And that's what this is. Like, yeah, I'd love to be able to see that. So what the Heat are doing right now is like, well, we can't make a birthday cake. Maybe we could put together enough for a blueberry muffin. Maybe we could scrounge something up and make like one decent little dessert of some kind. But a birthday cake is unrealistic, and that's where we're at right now. Like I know that's kind of a strange metaphor, but the reality is like they would love to be able to pull something off. It can't happen. It will not happen. We knew that. We knew that for weeks. When we had Keith Smith on here to break down the details of it, I think he made it pretty clear, even to us, that we had maybe entertained some possibility of them being able to acquire a mid-level player, but because of the salary cap constrictions, those weren't ever realistic possibilities. You're not going to be able to sign and trade players because of the salary cap, because of the being hard capped, etc. You're not going to be able to trade away.
Sign and trade out. You can't sign and trade in.
you're not going to be able to, trade away the players currently on the roster. As useful as they've been to Miami, I think you can honestly perceive them to have limited value around the league. Like, I don't know that any team saying, you know what, we want to build around a young Tyler Hero, or give us a $19 million sharpshooter in Duncan Robinson. Your best asset is Bam Adebayo. You're not trading him. Your second best asset might have been traded a few weeks ago, and Jimmy Butler, as we've been talking about for quite some time, and he decides he doesn't want to because he's not going to make a stink about his contract, at least not this year. Miami's hands were always going to be tied. And so were there options? Are there possible options that they can continue to explore? Yes. But given the fact that they don't have much in their pantry, there's not much that they're going to be able to bake together.
Not now. Not right now.
Not now.
But maybe later. We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Heat.
Oh, birthday cake. Yeah, all right. You know what? This show is brought to you by eBay Motors, because of passion, drive, and patience. Everything that drives the Heat front office. The formula for winning championships. That's also what keeps your car alive. And eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. And with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions do apply, and eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. We'll be right back.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Miami Heat Talk every day, 5 days a week. If you're new to us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. You can also follow us on your favorite podcast app. I'll be in Summer League in Las Vegas next week. We'll have a preview of that roster, some of the interesting notes that we're pulling out from some of these Summer League availabilities and that roster. We'll get to that a little bit later. We'll also talk about Caleb Martin and Haywood Highsmith here in a second. It was like 120 degrees in Vegas.
This Sunday. It's supposed to be 118 degrees.
Well, you know where there's no sun? At the craps table, baby. Sunshine in there.
It's just lost that.
Or in the arena where I'll be doing my work.
Yeah, I guess there's that too.
So here's where I think the Heat stand before we get to some of these other things. You're absolutely right. There's nothing out there right now. If they could have done Donovan Mitchell, they would have done Donovan Mitchell. If they could do Lauri Markkanen, they might do Lauri Markkanen, right? Like the DeMar DeRozan thing, they kicked the tires on it. We're told ain't going to happen. All right. At least they're trying. There's 3 months between now and the season starting. I don't think anybody expected Drew Holiday to be available in October last year. And then there he was. Traded to Portland. Portland had no use for him. Portland traded him to Boston. Boston wins a championship. I think the Heat are maintaining some flexibility here. Now, flexibility is, I'm using this pretty generously in terms of $7 million below the second tax apron. It's a limited amount. But they've got that. They still got the first-round pick. They still have the players that a lot of people think that they should just be trading away for nothing. And I do think what the Heat are going to be doing is, yes, if indeed they don't make a deal, they'll tell everybody in the media, we like our team. We think we'll have a better chance if we're healthier, with Jimmy Butler motivated and engaged in a contract year, all these things. All that stuff will be signaled out if they don't make a move. But they're not going to stop trying to make a move. And that's where I think they are at right now is, okay, Lauri Markkanen, we shake that tree over here. DeMar DeRozan, we'll shake the tree over there. And then you see if anything comes loose. And if it does, great. And if not, you keep it moving. Shake more trees. And I know Heat fans don't want to hear it. And I'm not trying to sell it. I'm not trying to. It's frustrating. It is absolutely frustrating when you see the rest of the competition in the East get better, but it's also where the Heat are at. So I just kind of wanted to provide like an update on. It sucks, but this is what it is. Essentially, that's where they're at. Anything else on that before we move on to the free agents?
No, I think that's pretty much it. Like barring a miracle, I would expect this roster to be going into training camp.
Well, they still need to sign at least one more player. So we'll see what that is.
Figure that out. Yeah.
Caleb Martin, Haywood Highsmith. So we got to the updates earlier. Caleb Martin turned down that extension from the Miami Heat before he declined the player option. Unclear exactly when that extension was offered. I think it was offered, and this isn't necessarily like a report, but more kind of like taking things that I've heard from sources and kind of mushing it together and trying to
Sure.
connect the dots here.
Yeah.
My sense is that Caleb Martin was offered that extension before the Heat even traded for Terry Rozier. That's my sense. He turned it down, bet on himself this season. They thought they were in the neighborhood of maybe getting a $15 million a year contract, 3 or 4 years, something like that. For right now, that market does not seem to be out there for Caleb Martin. Now, maybe that changes when DeMar DeRozan is off the board. He sort of had to wait for the Paul George thing to fall, the Klay Thompson thing to work out. Like, there's other forwards higher up on the pecking order that needed to figure out what it is that they needed to do. Maybe there's some money left over for Caleb Martin when all of this is sorted out. But that's where he's at. We'll see. Him and the Miami Heat remain in touch. That door is not closed, although it seems very unlikely still.
What do you think is fair market value for Caleb Martin?
10, 12, something like that. He's a good player, man. He's a two-way player. He plays really hard, can hit threes, can put the ball on the floor a little bit. Versatile defender. I think if a team actually took him and turned him into more of a 2-3, as opposed to what the Heat have been using him as a 3-4, he could be even better than what he's been for Miami over the last couple of years. So what about, is that about right for you, 10, 12-ish?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he struggled last year, and I've said this many times, but he was hurt, and I think that was a big part of it. He was trying to brush back. He was playing out of position, as you alluded to, and he was trying to cobble a season together, knowing that Jimmy was hurt, knowing that Tyler was hurt, that Bam missed time, that everybody missed time at one point or another. It's like, you know what? Not only am I in a contract here, but I want to contribute to something meaningful and be able to be a good player. But I think he's more like the player that we saw the season before, not necessarily Eastern Conference Finals MVP Caleb Martin, but a really good, useful utility player, as opposed to the guy that we saw struggle with a shot last year. I think the year before is probably more akin to what we could expect from him in the future. So if you're a team that's capable of paying Caleb, he's certainly a good value, I think.
I would be using him if Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was getting whatever it was, $22 million a year, whatever it was that they got from the Magic. You can make him, if you could use him as sort of a KCP light, that to me is the ideal role for him.
Yeah.
Because Caleb Martin playing power forward would be like KCP playing power forward. They're about the same size.
Does Denver not have like cap space to
they got
acquire a player? Okay.
They had cap space to bring. Well, they had Kentavious Caldwell-Pope's bird rights. They decided not to, so they're not going to.
Right.
I mean, maybe they could pay Caleb. I don't know.
It's affecting everybody. There's a lot of teams here. Kind of stuck.
Yeah, I basically come down to the fact of we all have questions about what you can and can't do with the second tax apron. My response to all of this is, if you ask if you can do something because of the second tax apron, just assume the answer is no.
Yep.
Because it's no. Yep. It's a hard cap. That's what it is. I'm almost done calling it a second apron because it's sort of like this weird PR spinned version of it from the. It's a hard cap. The owners put a hard cap.
The apron. It makes it sound so nice, right? It's like, oh,
yeah, aprons like those are like you could just go right through an apron.
Mom baking in the kitchen. It's just a little apron, it's just it's really nice. No. This is a steel.
It's the way that the owners. It's the owners. They Trojan horsed a hard cap in a second apron through the Players Association, and the Players Association fell for it. They fell for it, man. It's their problem. Haywood Highsmith. We already mentioned him before. Here's my question to you. Before I actually ask this question, one last thing on the Caleb Martin thing. And Haywood Highsmith. I guess this applies to both of them.
Yeah.
If I'm the Heat, I would work with Caleb and Haywood maybe to try to figure out what it is that they want in free agency. Whether it's, and I'm talking about from another team. Like Caleb, if that salary isn't there from the cap space teams, right? Like if I'm Caleb Martin, it doesn't make much sense for me to go to Detroit or Utah. And if I'm Detroit and Utah, it doesn't make any sense for me to sign Caleb Martin because I'm trying to lose. But work with him on a sign and trade the way that they did with Max Strus last year in Cleveland. Get like a second round pick or two back. I
don't think that isn't a possibility. I'm sure that they've actively engaged in that. I think they've explored.
That's what I would be looking to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that. My bigger question is, if the Heat are indeed interested, as has been reported, as I've heard, that interested in bringing back probably one of Caleb Martin or Haywood Highsmith based on where this roster is. You're not bringing back both of them.
Right.
Probably not bringing back either. I don't know. The Haywood Highsmith thing still feels a little bit 50-50 to me. Caleb, that seems like a slimmer chance. But why? That's my question. And that's not even like, no disrespect to Caleb or Haywood Highsmith, but I'm looking at the depth chart. What's their role exactly? Especially if you're going to give one of them a raise when right now, your starting lineup probably is Terry Rozier, Tyler Hero, or Duncan Robinson, whatever they decide to do there. Jimmy Butler, Nikola Jovic, Bam Adebayo. I think that's probably your starting five. Then you're going to want minutes for Khalil Ware. You want minutes for Kevin Love, I think, even though he's getting older, but I don't think you bring him back on a 2-year, $8 million deal just to sit on the bench. So I think he's getting minutes. Jaime Jaquez, obviously, and Alec Burks. That's 10 guys right there.
Yeah.
And I know some of them are going to get hurt and stuff like that, but that's what the guys at the minimum at the end of the roster are for. You're going to go out and try to give Caleb Martin or Haywood Highsmith a raise to do what? Whose spot are they taking in that lineup?
Look, you and I have talked about it off camera, and I just feel that Miami has leaned into an aspect of Heat culture that isn't kind of talked about that much, which is their internal belief on people that they work with and how strongly they're committed to the system, or that they understand what we're doing here. We've heard it before. It's become cliche. We're not for everybody. Mm-hmm. Well, they know Caleb's for us. They know Haywood's for us. That's the Heat front office perspective. So yes, it might be an overpay for a player of Caleb and or Haywood's skill set, but it's also a player that they feel comfortable with, knowing that at some point in time they're going to get minutes, and you can maintain not the illusion. They can maintain their reality, maybe not Heat fans' reality, but their reality, the front offices, that we're still competitive, that we're going to get the most out of this roster, that we're going to have players that understand what we're trying to do here and will contribute to quote unquote winning.
But where are they playing? Like, where are the minutes coming from? Unless they are envisioning trading one of the guards, whether it's Rozier, Hero, or Duncan Robinson. That's what I'm trying to.
They were here on the roster last year. Like, what's the difference between this roster and last year's roster? Like, if you have
they weren't sure,
but you lose one,
they weren't sure if Jaime was ready to play. He was a rookie, and they weren't sure if Nikola Jovic was ready to play.
They needed
those were their spots,
guys
and Haywood and Caleb were under contract. It's not like they decided to bring them back.
They needed every one of those guys at one point of the season.
No, I agree. I'm not saying that they weren't useful. I'm just saying, why are you going to give them a raise? Like, you're going to pay these guys to be at the end. They're going to, or I would say, who do you pay them? If you pay them, who are they playing over? I'm not saying they wouldn't. I'm just asking the question. Is Kevin Love just out of the rotation? And now we're playing one of these guys at power forward where they shouldn't be playing? Like, we're going to do that again? Have undersized power forwards backing up Nikola Jovic?
I think Love will play more at the 4.
That's what I'm saying. So if that's the vision here, then what's
Haywood
the plan if you're trying to bring back Haywood Highsmith?
He can play the 3. He's going to fill
Jimmy
in
Butler and Haywood. That's Jimmy Butler and Jaime.
If Jimmy Butler's available, if Jaime's available,
sure. Like, but you're going to pay Haywood Highsmith $5 million a year to wait on the bench? No,
that doesn't sound like a bad deal.
If you're $7 million before the second apron, it seems pretty risky.
I guess
that's the question I'm asking is, what's the plan if you're bringing these guys back? That's what I'm saying. Just sign and trade them away. Work with them. Get something back from them. Let them go. Let them. I love Haywood. I love Caleb. Caleb is a friend of the program. I want Caleb to go get paid. Work with him. Work with him. Sign and trade these guys. Get some second-round picks back. That's what I'm saying. What are we doing here? All right. Summer League notes. Who are the next Caleb Martin? Who's the next Haywood Highsmith? 11 rookies on the Summer League roster? What are we supposed to make of that? Coming up next here on Locked On Heat. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. Let us know in the comments section what the Heat should do with Caleb Martin. What should they do with Haywood Highsmith? Should they be offering everything in the moon for Lauri Markkanen? What stars are out there that they should be trading for? Let us know in the comments. Also, follow us on your favorite podcast app. The road to 14,000 subscribers. We are almost there.
Yeah, right there.
So close. By the time Summer League's over, I want us at 14K.
We'll be there. We'll be there by the time Summer League starts.
Oh, beautiful. I love that prediction. By the way, you're probably right about the Haywood Highsmith, Caleb Martin thing. They probably just aren't even thinking about it at this point. The Heat. I don't know. They're just bring them back if they want the money. I can't figure it out. Where are they supposed to play? I would like to know what the plan is here.
Keep saying that. Going back to the episode earlier this week, and I saw some comments on YouTube about it. It's Some people agree with my perspective of quote unquote defending the front office, which I don't think I was necessarily, but I tried to
The David heads have been
explain their
strong
perspective.
lately.
I was trying to explain their perspective at a time when people were frustrated, and I
Uh-huh.
can understand what their view was. But your point was that they have no plan. Their plan was to have one at some point over the 5 years, and I was criticized for saying, but that I look backwards as opposed to looking forward. It's like, well, you know what? You can't really predict what's going to happen forward. You're fielding as close to a winning team as you envision, and maybe there's a concern. I don't know if at some point in time, like I'm trying to think. I've been a long time fan, obviously. Although I didn't cover the sport that long, but like this idea of being stuck on the treadmill of mediocrity, it feels like it took off with Zach Lowe and Bill Simmons before
Well, Pat
him.
Riley said it, right?
The
There's winning
treadmill
and
of
then there's
mediocrity.
misery, and the whole
Yeah,
thing
yeah,
is
yeah,
that
yeah,
everyone wants to
yeah,
be in the
yeah.
middle. You gotta, it's
Yeah, yeah,
championships or nothing, all that kind of stuff.
I guess, but even that talking point wasn't really something that was adopted by fans. And I think
Oh, I see.
I also think, even like Michael Jordan changed the way the league was. Like before Jordan made it known that like I've got 6 rings and you don't, and that people were like bashing Charles Barkley and all-time great, and
Well,
Patrick Ewing and
what's
all-time
Jerry
great.
West's record in the finals? Wasn't it like 1-9 or
Crappy,
something?
craptacular, and one of the most winning.
But one of the great win. But what he's the logo.
Yes.
One of the great winners of all time. He would have
Yes.
never been considered a winner had he come after Michael Jordan. To your point,
Absolutely.
because you're like, hey, you got to the
Absolutely.
finals, and that's an accomplishment. Nope, no, it's
Nope, you
not.
suck, bro. You
Yep.
suck, Jerry. You can't do anything. Sorry you dragged yourself out there with a broken arm and a separated shoulder and a
No,
broken.
but I understand that Heat fans want you got to do something. Like you're right. It sucks that everything's measured in just like winning championships or bust. But I will say this: you also don't want to be a playing team 2 years in a row. It's like give me something. Like I want to know that
That's been bad.
if I'm paying for tickets, if I'm invested in the team, give me something more than that. I do understand that. So
You remember asking the question at some point, like in February or March, that if you knew that you were going to be a play-in team or get swept in the first round,
oh
like,
yeah.
you it was so unfortunate that you nailed that because it's basically what happened.
That's exactly what happened.
It's
Yeah,
just-
I'd rather just be in the lottery. Give me a lottery pick. All right, let's talk about Summer League really quick.
Woo.
Just a bunch of notes here, but first thing we want to do, kind of go through the roster. On the Summer League squad, I'm not going to name all the names, but there's 11 rookies on this team. That is a lot. That's a lot of rookies, right? Like usually these Summer League teams are a lot of rookies. It's not 80% of the roster. There's 1, 2, 3 guys on this roster who are not rookies. And that's Josh Christopher, who played with the Skyforce last year, Cole Swider, who played with the Skyforce last year, and Alondas Williams, who played with the Skyforce. Swider and Williams, obviously two-way guys also for the Heat. Everybody else is a rookie. So that includes the obvious ones, right? The Pella Larson, Khalil Ware, Kashad Johnson, Zion Pullen. So the guys that are kind of on the Heat roster, quote unquote on, two-way guys with Pullen and Johnson. But some other really interesting names. I think Caleb Daniels, the guard out of Villanova, guy that we did a little bit of scouting work on. I don't know if we did. I did. I don't remember if we talked about him, but he's an interesting guard out of Villanova. Another guy, Warren Washington, 7-footer out of Texas Tech, kind of rim rolling 7-footer kind of guy. I'm watching him. Got my eye on him. What do you make of them? Of this roster being this young? How many rookies it has? Is that meaningful to you?
To me, it's just feeding the pipeline.
Exactly.
Again, you're supplementing the rosters that have been kind of picked clean from Sioux Falls and things of that sort. I think we could expect a number of these players to get that opportunity. And then the ones that aren't rookies, I think they'll probably be promoted to the big club and they'll probably be spending a lot of their time. They're not only did they sign 2 ways, but I think they're going to have a lot of opportunity to get some minutes at the NBA level. And so this is the method to kind of get these guys early on as rookies, start teaching them Heat habits, start teaching them Heat language and the way that we do things here. And then you can kind of get them into the Sioux Falls mill early on so that you can start running them through. And maybe at some point they'll pop. Probably not this year. I wouldn't expect any of them to pop really, but you'll have the opportunity maybe if you come back next season and get an opportunity to kind of show out in Summer League, and maybe you'll be one of those guys that gets awarded a 2-way contract. It's a long, arduous process for these guys that went undrafted. They just, unless they have a miraculous skill set, like, I mean, the Duncan Robinson path, obviously is so unlikely, and you have to put up historically good numbers. It's still a miracle that he's even in the NBA. that he was ever given an opportunity to be at the NBA, given the fact that he wasn't drafted, that he came in through Sioux Falls, and that he wasn't really viewed as an NBA type talent. So it just goes to show what he's able to accomplish, what he's been able to accomplish just to get to this point in the first place. I don't know. Somebody has to have a really impressive summer showing where they're just wind up being virtually unstoppable in order to earn significant playing time.
It's replenishing the development pipeline. You do that with 11 rookies, and then everybody else who you kind of know what their deal is between Christopher, Swider, and Williams there. My best guess for player Heat fans fall in love with during Las Vegas Summer League, Neil Seiko, 6'11" forward/center out of France. So look, the Heat saw Victor Wembanyama, Riza Shea. They've seen all these French guys get picked. They're like, you know what? We get our own French guy. Nobody's ever heard of him, and he went undrafted. We don't know where he came from, but we got him, baby. So they're in on the France connection here.
Oh.
Neil Seiko.
Okay, he's a rookie, but he's also he was born in, am I reading this right, 98?
Yeah, he's 25.
So he's a little older than the average rookie too.
Yeah, but he's 6'11", shoots 50% from three-point range in 37 games last year. There's a real skill set there. I don't know. I could just see, like, that's my best guess. That's the one that Heat fans are going to be posting highlights on Twitter and all the things. I'm calling it now. That's my bet. What about you? Give me a name, just a guess of which one Heat fans fall in love with. You can't say Khalil Ware. That's cheating.
No, I think it's actually Pelle Larsson. I think
that's also cheating. Not the draft picks. Give the random guy.
No, all right. Because last year was what, Jaime or Orlando Robinson, and then it was pretty
Orlando
much
Robinson was sort of the guy. Yeah.
Jamari Bouye.
Bouye was the one. Yeah, Bouye was the one. It might be Josh Christopher this time.
Yeah, it could be Christopher.
Yeah.
I mean, he's skilled. Like, he's a wing, and he's already tasted this. Like, he's not going to be like, oh, I'm overwhelmed by all this.
Right.
Like, no, he knows these coaches. He knows the language.
Former first round pick, crazy athlete. Yeah. He's a guy that like Summer League just feels right for him to show off.
Oh yeah. And then
he's
not showcasing for other teams.
Level. Right.
He's showcasing for other teams, basically.
No, you're right. The two-way contracts, right? We've got Zion pulling, Williams, and Drew Smith right now. Drew Smith is still rehabbing from the knee injury. He's not part of the Summer League roster here. But Swider and Alondas Williams are still on the QOs, still on the qualifying offer as restricted free agents. I don't think that Miami's two-ways are settled. Just saying that. I think they're going to look at Summer League and training camp and then figure it out after that. But that's what they do every year, so that shouldn't be surprising. One name I'm surprised isn't, I'm not surprised, but I thought might be on their Summer League roster, James Bouknight.
Yes.
He visited with the Heat over the summer, and I thought he was going to maybe get a shot on the Summer League roster. That didn't happen. He's not on any Summer League roster, so I don't know what's going on with him. I know he got pulled over for a DWI in April. I'm not sure how serious of a deal that is for him, but I was a little surprised not to see him in a Summer League roster at all after being let go by Charlotte. But yeah, he visited the Heat a few weeks ago, and I thought maybe that was to lock him up on a Summer League chance, but evidently that's not what happened there. Two more notes. Cole Swider in a media session the other day called Khalil Ware a physical monster and compared him to Derek Lively. So just shout out to Cole Swider. I like that. That.
Yes, I love it. That's what the hope was, right? And when we were talking about the pre-draft process, I didn't expect Ware to be Derek Lively, but that's the high ceiling, right? That's that he could come in and be a factor and a spark for a team that's already fully, not fully formed, but close to fully formed. That's basically what Lively did for Dallas this past year. So yeah, I'm glad to see that that Swider shares that assessment of Ware's possibility.
Gotta get Swider on the show soon. And then Khalil Ware in his media session on Friday said that he's currently weighing in at 230 pounds, but the Heat wanted to get him up to 240 or 245. So that's getting this guy ready to play center minutes in the NBA. And that's part of the thing that we said during the pre-draft process, even during our Blue Notebook. We said, this guy's got to get stronger. He kind of gets pushed off his spots a little bit. And then you said, yep, but he's also 20. We're going to get him stronger. I'm excited, man. The more that I'm hearing about Khalil Ware and all these things, and maybe I'm just a sucker for Derek Lively comps, but I'm getting excited about this kid. Is he going to start?
No.
Do you think they've shut the door on that idea, or do you think they'll maybe leave it open?
I think he has to be. He has to show that he can handle the physicality. Yeah, not just at Summer League, but
yeah, they're not going to hand it to him.
Summer League is going to be a nice start. If he comes in and busts his hump for the month after that and just like really, it just blows away coaching staff with his work ethic and his commitment and everything else, like 3 days, like that we've seen nothing. Like what without everything that he's gotten up to this point has just been nothing but a taste in comparison to what we will see. Then yes, because then he has to show up against veterans in training camp, and that's where he'll really have an opportunity. So it's that month and a half in between. And I think that's kind of what we heard from Hyman. Not only did he have a strong showing, but then he got hurt, didn't really play a lot at Summer League. Right. But it was the work ethic that he had shown in between Summer League and when training camp started, and then had to have an impressive showing in training camp. And he was an older player, so maybe he was a little bit more ready. But at the same time, I think that's where Ware has to really make that strong impression. It's not in Summer League. That's the start of it. It's in between here and training camp.
Yeah, we remember being in training camp last year, and people could not stop talking about Jaime. You would ask them about something unrelated, and they'd be like, "Yeah, but let's talk about Jaime Jaquez," you know. And those are
who's the one player who showed out Jaime. It was like they were
every single time. And so I like what I'm hearing early on from Khalil Ware. I know it's only been a couple of days. The team's right now in San Francisco preparing for their first game tomorrow, Saturday night.
California Classic.
6:00, I think. 6:30 is their first game, Eastern time. But yeah, I like everything that we're hearing so far.
We will not have a full recap of that game, though.
We will not.
Just putting it out there.
We will not be doing that.
Clarifying.
Who does Khalil Ware need to play next to, though, in order to maximize his skill set? You would argue their best pick and roll ball handler, and that would be Terry Rozier, I think, is Miami's best pick and roll ball handler. So I just wonder, it doesn't mean that Khalil Ware needs to start, but his minutes probably need to be aligned with Rozier's for him to be maximized, right? And then you mentioned the thing about Jaime being older and maybe a little bit more NBA ready. You could also make the argument that, yeah, Khalil Ware might be young, it is younger and maybe not as seasoned as Jaime, but he's way more athletic and bigger than Jaime is. So that almost gives him like a different kind of NBA advantage where it's like, yeah, I might not know what I'm doing out here, but I have the athleticism to at least make up for those things a little bit more than with if Jaime wasn't ready for the NBA level, then he wasn't going to play. Because it's not like you put him on the court for some sort of high-end supreme athleticism, you know?
Right.
So I don't know. I think Ware's going to play. I don't think they've settled who's going to start or whatever, but I think Ware is going to have to play with Rozier quite a bit. Is where I'm at.
I think we've heard that over the last couple of days, and I can't recall now because it's all been a slight blur in terms of some quote unquote reporting, maybe that the idea is that Terry has been doing some work and that he might be coming off the bench next year. That Tyler's still going to continue starting, and then I guess that would probably open a door for Duncan Robinson, assuming that there's no other changes to the roster, which is likely to happen. So the starting lineup next year would be Tyler, Duncan, Jimmy, Nico, Bam, and then Terry would come off the bench, and then he would have those opportunities to play alongside Kevin Love and also Khalil Ware. So that's a good second unit.
I had not heard that specifically about Rozier coming off the bench, but I do know that the Heat were never really sold on the Terry Rozier, Tyler Hero combo as a starting backcourt, right? So it feels like something's got to give, and I think most people just assume, well, start Duncan Robinson because of his chemistry with the starting lineup, bring Tyler Hero off the bench. But I could see the argument for, hey, we need as much spacing as possible, so we want to start Tyler and Duncan, our two best three-point shooters, and maybe empower Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo to do more playmaking and Tyler Hero to work off the ball a little bit more. And maybe that's why you're trying to bring Haywood or Caleb back, is because you want to play them like at the two-guard spot. Maybe Duncan still comes off the bench, and you play those guys where they're supposed to be playing their entire careers.
Nah, why would you do that?
No, not why would you do that when they could be an undersized four?
And then get hurt and make them less of a trade. Yeah, and ruin their trade
by the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's what we do. Not for everybody. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your podcast app.